See? Yes? Okay. It's on now. Is that enough? Okay. Okay. We're going to begin 1 minute.
Paco, this event will be streamed at YouTube, right? Good morning. You are welcome, and thank you for waiting. The workshop will start right now. Thank you for being early. You are welcome to the 10th M4DT Day. Today's topic is cloud technologies. My name is Hugo Gasca. Currently, I'm a manager coordinator at CENAM, Mexico. And also currently, I'm the chair of the Metrology for Digital Transformation Working Group, number 14 at SIM, from SIM. And I will be your host for this event today. Before we start, it's important to let you know some specific points. The first one is that the event will be recorded from the beginning to the end. And also in this occasion, it also will be streamed at YouTube. Please turn off your microphones and cameras unless you are asked specifically otherwise. And you can use the chat to ask any question to the speaker at any time. Of course, all the answers will be answered as soon as the speaker ends his presentation. And right after the end of the event, a short poll, a survey about today's experience will appear to you. So please, it will take a little time, but it's very important, your feedback. So please answer the survey, fill the survey, and this will help to improve our work in these events or next events. This workshop is organized by the Metrology Working Group number 14 from SIM, of the Inter-American metrology system. And our objective is with this kind of events is to promote the digital transformation and to increase the awareness on these topics in the region, and to make a liaison with similar organizations. We have a collaboration with other international organizations. This metrology working group is the link between the SIM and the digital transformation effort. The Metrology Working Group 14 has 6 task forces. I want to introduce very briefly to them to specifically work with subjects on subjects that interest the region. I invite you to participate in all of them and to contact the group. These task forces will be shown in the chat box. So please support if you can share the links at the chat box. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to check if you want to check our website after where you may find information on these task forces, other activities, and other events. And you may find videos and several presentations of the previous webinars, and also the web page will appear in the chat. Thank you very much. Please support. Can you show? Yes, the links. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Mr. Rodolfo Sousa to give the welcome and opening remarks for this day. Dr. Rodolfo Sousa is a division chief in Metro, and this is in Brazil. And currently, he is the coordinator of the task force on cloud technologies. Welcome, Rodolfo. Please go ahead.
Good morning and good afternoon for everybody. The Cloud Technology Group was established considering the Euromet project of European Metrological Cloud, which is a large initiative to integrate legal and industrial metrology, accreditation, conformity assessment, and also give dynamic capabilities for metrological information for the industry. It's definitely an ambitious project. Also, BIPM launched the Digital SI initiative with the following goal: to develop and establish a worldwide, uniform, unambiguous, and secure data exchange format for use in IoT networks based on International System of Units, SI, described in the current SI brochure. And many other technologies, digital technologies that could impact metrology are emerging, like virtual measurements, digital twins, digital calibrated certificates, and others. So the idea of the group, really the situation of the SIM region is very, very different from Europe. We don't have something like the European economic community in this region, except for limited regions like in the north we have the NAFTA, in the south we have the Mercosur, but we don't have a large commerce integration between the countries in the region to justify to establish a so broadly metrological cloud in the area. So the idea is not work on a large project, but to find some one-off projects that all the SIM countries could participate. From the United States, that's a very large country, Canada, many countries in the Central America that are not so large. A project to find projects that it could be useful for all the countries. And with Lucky, we could finance these projects with the IDB funding that the CIM have. In this event, we are going to present some ideas that could motivate to pursue some similar projects of that ideas, or give new insights to find some good, simple, and useful projects that we could develop together. So Bruno from Metro will show a use of QR codes in a new idea to use QR codes in legal metrology. Then Jean Martin from the University of Santa Catarina in the south of Brazil, will present some ideas of using blockchain. Blockchain is the word nowadays in the cloud. Blockchain and digital certificates for one different kind of certificate, a university certificate, but it's a digital contract. It's something like we could replace the certificate from university for the certificate from calibration certificate and make a blockchain network to get these certificates. It's a possibility. And then finally, Jeff Gust from Fluke will present what Fluke is doing in that a manufacturer is doing on these cloud systems and digital transformation. So I hope this event will be very productive, very instructive for everybody, and you like the speeches that are going to start now. Thank you, Hugo. You can continue now.
Thank you very much, Rodolfo. We will start then with the first presentation of the day, and this is about the QR codes for legal metrology applications. And the speaker will be Bruno Erzal from Metro Brazil. And Bruno has a Bachelor in Computer Sciences and a Master in Metrology and Quality. Actually, or currently, he's head of the Division of Legal Metrology Supervision at Metro Brazil. Welcome, Bruno. Please go ahead with your presentation. Bruno, I cannot hear you and I cannot see your presentation yet.
I will listen now.
Okay, thank you.
Are you seeing the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm delighted to be here and share the Metro experience on digital transformation in legal metrology. Today, I will show that simple technology could also produce digital transformation. I will present a QR code project to improve market surveillance that had been developed at Metro's at legal metrology department in Metro. Nowadays, Brazil faces a critical legal metrology problem. Many commercial transactions in small business use no automatic weighting instruments without type approval. Those scales enter the Brazilian market by importation, usually as a non-commercial scales, for example, domestic ones. Once they enter Brazilian territory, they are sold on e-commerce platforms by fake users at a very competitive price. Usually, street markets and small business use these scales. It's a market surveillance nightmare. First, find the fake sellers and their storage is very hard. Second, Brazil is a country of continental proportions, and it's a great challenge to inspect all small business that use scales in their transaction. Let's look at the life cycle of an unapproved scale to better understand the market surveillance actions that could take place in each step. First, the scale is manufactured outside Brazil. Then it is imported. The most common is that import is done in large containers and that the importer declares that the scale is not for commercial use. After entering Brazil market, it is sold by e-commerce platforms like Mercado Libre, Shopee, Amazon, via internet. And then it goes to the final user. Mainly a small business point first step. Metro has no agent over a manufacturer that's outside Brazil. So there is nothing you can do here. Point second step. Some mitigating strategies is to act at a custom house, looking for scales with price information on this display, as there is no reason for non-commercial scales have the price value on this display. Third step, action with a marketer website to avoid the sale of these scales. We are building direct communication channels with these websites to request that irregular products for sale being removed from the websites as soon as possible. Well, finally, this project focuses on the commercial transaction. We want to provide citizens information about last verification of the scale so they can identify unapproved scales. Recently, Imetro creates a certification authority. The main reason for the certification authority is to ensure digital certificates for mentioned instruments, to ensure the integrity and authenticity of measurement results. Once a digital certificate binds identifies to a public key, it's natural to foresee digital certificates as a solution for the unapproved scales problem. Unfortunately, this is a costly solution because it requires several changes in the instruments to secure the private key, increasing costs with electronic and digital certification. Product cost is a big concern here. Type-approved scales are at least 3 times more expensive than unapproved ones. This happens because they use more reliable components to comply with the legal metrological test requirements. Also, importers that declare their scales as a commercial should pay metrological control costs and more expensive tax. The great challenge of this project is that we can't use a solution that increases the final price of the approved scales. Otherwise, we will stimulate for the sales of unapproved scales. Almost all types of regulated measuring instruments in Brazil have a unique identifier called inventory code. Each instrument on the field has a tag identifying it. Inmetro has this inventory code for legal metrological control. For example, agents inform those codes to determine which instruments they perform a metrological verification. Also, Inmetro saves all information about the legal metrological control in database where the inventory code is a key identifier. Our idea is to use this inventory code as a parameter to search the information about the instruments on Inmetro's official website. We have discussed the importance of Citizen in Brazil legal metrology system. We expected that this website will empower Brazilian citizens to become strong players in legal metrology. QR codes are the natural replacements to barcodes. And I'd like to highlight three main advantages of QR codes for this application. First, it's easy to read a QR code with a smartphone. And it's crucial that anyone can read it and get the instrument information at our website. Second, the large size of the message storage allows us to store the full URL. Our website, the full URL of our website, and not only the inventory codes like the barcode. Third, the QR code is more resistant to damage, like scratch, and we need the label continuous readable after years because it's not replaced regularly.
Calculación, pero con código QR, ¿oíste? Esa no la había escuchado.
So this is the model of the label that we intend to use. Already this year, from June, the QR code stores the full URL below the image. So you can see here is the next inventory code, inventory label that we want to use from June. And here is the actual one, the current one. The main difference is that the current one uses a barcode, and the barcode stores only the inventory code, that is the number below the image, below the barcode. And the new one stores the full URL that is below the image, so it can point to a website. In this image, you can see the complete system as we foresee it. The scale has an inventory label with QR code. The citizen reads the QR code using a smartphone. The website displays the instrument information. In the first version of the website, we made it as simple as possible. All the instrument information is already in Metro's database. So the website will search in the database for the instrument information that contains the model of the instrument, the timestamp of the last metrological verification, and if the instrument is authorized or not to operate. We know that copying or creating a QR code is extremely easy. And it is our biggest problem to solve in this application, because an attacker could use the same QR codes for more than one scale, or even create a new QR code pointing to a fake Inmetros website. That's why we are planning to add other pieces of information in future versions of the website that could minimize this problem, such as photos of the instruments, geolocation data, and Inmetros database and geolocation data that Inmetros database is already to receive. However, inspectors do not collect it. Once they lack the equipment, they don't have a smartphone to work and use as old to work yet, and they use old palm tops like device. We also consider that the label with QR code could be used for many other applications. For example, reading digital certificates of food dispenser. As I said before, we create a CA that emits digital certificates to food dispenser, and we could scan this QR code to get from internet the food dispenser digital certification, for example. Geolocation of instruments in inspections. This is important because the inspector, when it goes to make an inspection, he wants to know where the instruments are. And geolocation is a very important data to him. Full integration with other Inmetro systems. We are planning to make an app for mobiles, and this app can verify the certification of food dispenser, and we want all the methodological all the attributes of metrology, legal metrology, are inside this app, and we think that the QR codes are important attributes to enter in this app as a parameter. Since we are talking about the use of QR codes for legal metrology applications, I also want to talk about other initiatives. The oscillometers approved on an annual verification have paper certificates to prove it's authorized to be used. These equipments are often used on roads where sometimes rain, and the paper certificates takes damage. From next month, this paper certificate will receive a QR code that will be used to open a website with a digital copy of the certificate and check its authenticity. So, the owner of the oscillometers will be able to carry a copy of the certificate and keep the original on a safe place. I'm deeply honored to present Inmetro's work to such an audience. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for your talk. We will start with the questions. Hopefully, we have this question. Thank you very much. This is when you mention geolocation, the idea is to gather information from the web page, accessing info, or from the QR codes, or do you do this during the possible inspections, or what's the idea of that?
The idea is when the inspector goes to an annual verification, he will start the geolocation of the instruments in our database. And when the citizen scan the QR code, he will see where the place where was realized the last verification. Because and the other important thing is that if we start the geolocation, maybe if someone copy QR codes, we will have two different places, the same scale in two different places. And we can data mine our database and find these kinds of problem. With this information, we can direct our visualization to this instrument.
Thank you, Bruno, for answering this question. I have another question related to this is how do you identify uniquely the instruments? What information help you identify in this case? Like, do you use the brand, the model, a serial number, or inventory number? Or...
I'm sorry, Francisco, could you repeat? I was reading the chat. Could you please repeat the question?
Oh, well, Ruben is asking, in the case of accredited laboratories that provide services in Metro, asked to use these QR codes?
Well, it will become in June, but if the laboratory has instruments that has legal metrological control, he will need to use this QR code. But the label with the QR code is the Metro who buy these labels and put it in the instrument.
Okay, thank you. I was asking you a different question also. What information do you use to identify uniquely the instruments? In this case, the balances,
okay,
the scales. Did you use the brand, the model, the serial number, inventory number, the owner? Maybe I don't know.
Yes, it's we call inventory code. It's a number generated in our system, but it is a sequential number with a validator code, but it is sequential.
Okay.
But you know, all these labels are furnished by Metro. So Metro buy all the labels and furnish and give it to the instrument. The Metro's employee goes and glue the label in the instrument.
Thank you very much, Ruben. It says that Carlos is asking to turn off your camera. I know, Enzo. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other question? I think maybe Francisco, who is raising his hand. Yeah, Francisco, go ahead, Francisco. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you very much for your speak. And I want to know how are you using these QR labels? Is it possible to use them outside the Metro from the cell phones with an application or something like that?
Yes, I think that every time you have some automatization that needs to read a number, it's much easier if you use the QR code. So maybe in the future, every regulated instruments, not only for Inmetro, but for other engines, will need to have the QR code with its identifier.
But I suppose that the QR code would be used with an application in order to read the information, but to consult a database in order to give more information about that, isn't it?
You're saying that we could use the QR codes to put more information than only the URL. That's right. What,
maybe not in the QR, but in an application. This application only reads the QR and take information from some place in order to give more information.
Yes, that's exactly what we are planning to do.
Okay. Are you planning to do that in the cloud or in your
Yes.
or in terms?
Because we have a website that is in the cloud, of course, but it connects to. I will explain. We already have a system we call SGI. It's like management instrument management system,
Okay.
and it is used only for our employees nowadays. In the future, we want to connect our site with this database, with this system, with the database of this system, and get all the information we need from this system. So that's why, right in their presentation, I said that it's very simple to us to get this information because we already have it in our database.
Okay, thank you very much. I suppose that it's really interesting to know how can we use the infrastructure in order to get this information and to take more information about the measure or the instrument or the client or something like that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Varun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno. Any other question, please write it down or raise your hand and you can ask. Speaking your question, please. Well, thank you very much, Bruno. We don't have additional questions. Thank you for your presentation and for answering this every question we have.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, we will continue with the presentation of Jean Martina from UFCS Brazil. The name of this presentation of the talk is Blockchain and Digital Certification Applications in the Cloud. Dr. Jean Martina currently is a senior lecturer and researcher at the Laboratory of Computer Security at the Universidad Federal de Santa Catarina. He's currently working on authentication protocols for telemedicine environments on the formalism or formalization of security ceremonies. The design of Internet of Things, terror security protocols, and blockchain applications. Dr. Jean is also a visiting lecturer in computer science at University of Hertfordshire, working mainly as project supervisor for bachelor of science and master degrees of science. Hello, Dr. Jean. Go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Just 1 second for me to check if I can share my screen with the presentation. I hope you all are seeing it. I'd like to thank for the invitation. Okay, I've been working with Inmetro in some projects here. Our computer security lab at the Federal University of Santa Catarina we've been helping them to understand some problems in some scenarios, specifically that deal with how to authenticate devices that are used on legal metrology. Okay, so during these project developments that we had been sharing with Inmetro, some things caught to our attention, and we have our group here. We also do research on other topics, and one of the topics that we do a lot of research is blockchain. So we started developing some ideas. We are actually implementing them, and maybe in the future we'll be offering to Inmetro as an option to run some of their infrastructure on that. Okay, so I will start here with some problem definition. Okay, so one of the things that we already seen from Bruno's talk that was actually one of the questions that was asked to him regards about assumptions on authentication, on the authenticity of the device, and the identification of a legal metrology and certified device. So what we are aiming here is to start talking about the Internet of Things, where those things are legal metrological devices. And we realize that for such devices to form an IoT, okay, there is a strong assumption on authentication. Okay, we need to be sure about their identities at first. Of course, that if we look for that in the wild, we'll see that there are many standardized ways of achieving such authentication, okay, determining the authenticity of such a device, and most of them require the use of public key crypto. Okay, we also seen that in some scenarios it is infeasible to use standard public key crypto, okay, because they are very CPU intensive, and this makes things slightly difficult when we are talking about battery powered systems or resource constrained components. Okay, then one of the things that people start thinking about is to move this cryptography towards elliptic curve cryptography, because it uses smaller keys. Then we have a less CPU intensive application. But what happens is that most of the standards that are available everywhere, they have questionable reputation due to their history. So I'm bringing you one in here. Okay, that is probably the most widely used one. That is NIST SACP 256. That is a well-known elliptic curve that is used for most blockchain applications around, and is in use for a great percentage of the internet in SSL TLS authentication. But we know that SACP has, the security community has some doubts regarding that maybe NSA engineered some backdoors on that curve. This was reviewed by Snowden back in 2012, 2013. Okay, and we also see that some of the standards are moving to new crypto with more efficiency and more security. So one example that I want to bring you here is that TLS 1.3 is moving to a new kind of elliptic curves that are called Adword Curves. Okay, so how are we dealing with this issue of authenticity of legal metrological devices in Brazil? Okay, Brazil has a very well-developed PKI ecosystem. Okay, so Brazil adopts by law what we call qualified digital certificates, and these are available for legal metrology. Okay, and when we talk about a qualified digital certificate, we are saying that the identity in these digital certificates, of course, this is the relation between the public and the private keys that are used for identity assurance in this case. They are tied together with a digital certificate, and these identities that we are using here for these metrological devices, they are assured by the ICP Brazil ecosystem. Okay, it's an ecosystem of more than 20 certification authorities, like 1,000 different registration authorities. And we have the concept of a government assured identity, because the person that is responsible for that equipment, for producing or for using or for installing, needs to have an identity issued by the government under this qualified digital certificate scheme. And these terms are very, these guarantees are very strong. And if you ever heard about ADAS, that is the European framework for digital identities, we have something similar to what's called there as qualified digital signatures. Okay, and now we have been since last year, Inmetro is part of the Brazilian PKI. It is what we call the first level certification authority. Okay, and in order to bring Inmetro in, Brazil, the Brazilian government, created a root CA targeted to the use on legal metrological devices. Okay, it's called we have this root CA. It's called ICP Brazil V6. Okay, and it is already based on Adword elliptic curves. So we are using two kinds of elliptic curves. One that is 448 bits long, that is ED448, and we have one that is used for the devices themselves. That is a 256-bit curve that is called ED25516. Okay, and the basis in these digital certificates and these crypto in use now, they will serve as a basis for a series of regulations that will be enforced in the future. Okay, so this is an ongoing movement. Inside this ongoing movement, we've been working within Metro on the fuel pump. Okay, I don't know if you ever heard about how fuel pumps work in Brazil, but if you come in here and you have to fill up your car, you have to know that we have an endemic problem of rigged fuel pumps. Okay, they are tampered with in very different levels, with very different ways of cheating customers and revenue systems. Okay, so that someone is getting the money out of that. Okay, and in order to sort this out, Inmetro is proposing new regulations for using a secure element in these equipments. Okay, and some of what is being thought in there, and this is not conjecture. Okay, something that is already happening, is being implemented already. We have companies that are already building up these fuel pumps with these requirements. Fuel pumps will have digital certificates issued by the Brazilian PKI, so we have this very strong identity assurance, okay? And they will use Adword elliptic curves, okay? And then after all that was said, we then realized that some secure elements are not duly certified to use Adwords still, because it is a quite new standard. So actually we'll be using some brain pool elliptic curves due to the lack of these certified Adword secure elements. But it's something that it's ongoing, okay? This initiative, of course, aims at reducing such fraud using a technique that we call perimeter security, okay? And what happens is that we will create an element that is secure, but with a very well-defined perimeter, and this will probably make a fraud much more difficult, or at least easily detectable when done outside this perimeter. And it's very likely that this strategy, the fuel pump, is only the first calibrated device or legal metrology device that will use such technology. But other things can, of course, inherit the same the same sort of strategy. Okay. But then comes to us, and this is something that is already happening in here, okay? Brazilian PKI and the fuel pump scheme that is going on. But it came to us as a research group here in the Federal University of Santa Catarina, what else can we do with this infrastructure? Okay, and then we start asking ourselves some of the things that are quite interesting. Okay, so one important thing that is that we'll be able to track the use of the equipment. Okay, so if we have these keys and all the measurements are output in some way and they are tracked, or at least I can track from time to time, I can know impacts on its calibration assurances, okay, due to use or due to a poor use of the equipment, okay, and also it helps us to detect potential issues that may happen with the equipment by comparing things that we are sure that are coming out from the equipment, okay. Some of the things we're already doing, okay, we're already helping in Metro to develop a mobile application to talk to these equipments and actually ask to the people in general to submit this measurement so that we can do some tracking, okay. Identity assurance on such devices helps us also to track ownership as well as responsibilities. So we can tie very tight together in this sense, who is the owner or who's responsible with the actual ownership of the equipment. Another thing that we can do is maintain maintenance and equipment history, okay? And we can assure that because we can make this fuel pumps in this case to output some interesting data that can help us to understand when one of these fuel pumps ended up rigged and how things happen in order to counteract this movement, okay? But then we started thinking, okay, if we provide these devices with some sort of connectivity, then the sky's the limit, okay? So if we're able to send this data to the cloud, it will help us to get a bigger picture of potential fraud. And if we organize this data into a blockchain, that is basically what I'm about to propose you here, it will help us to track the full history of an equipment. So we may be able, depending on how things are set up, to know all the measurements that an equipment ever made, and then we know a lot of things regarding its use and its calibration and so on. So what we started doing in here as an experiment so far. We created this concept of a blockchain of legal metrological devices, okay? And we came from this idea that the devices, they already have strong identity assumptions that they can be then easily identified. They also have key pairs that can be used to sign blockchain transactions, okay? The fact that they use elliptic curve cryptography, okay, allows them to create transactions and to issue these transactions to a blockchain network. And then in our proposal, we are seeking to establish a blockchain of legal metrological devices to do mainly three things, okay? First, we would like to track calibration, okay? So whenever this equipment is set to calibration, it will issue a series of transactions, and this will help us to know when it was calibrated, by whom, under which circumstances, and so on. And then during its lifetime, we know how it's working in terms of calibration. Then the equipment, of course, has, in case of fuel pumps at least, they have part that is calibrated, but we have other that is under legal metrological scrutiny. But we have some other parts that are not. So we can use this blockchain also to track maintenance, any sort of maintenance that is happening. And finally, depending on the level of connectivity, we could track full use of such equipment, okay? And we realized that if we are able to follow these three steps, this will increase the reliability of the whole system in many orders, okay? And it will also allow for other applications to consume such data. For example, we can get the data of metrological readings that are happening and do statistical gathering, okay? So we can answer a lot of questions regarding the use and maybe the abuse of these legally calibrated metrological devices. And also, I think that is the most interesting one, is that we can track fraud and do some fraud prevention by understanding some predicted misbehaviors of these legal metrological devices. Okay. Then we started doing that. So what we've done so far, we ended up creating a whole clone of the Brazilian metrological PKI. So we have this ICP Brazil V6. We got the same software, the same hardware, and we generated a clone. Of course, it's not exactly the same because we have different key pairs. Obviously, otherwise we'll be able to create some clones of the equipments themselves. We have now a Hyperledger Fabric implementation that, instead of dealing with SAC-P256 elliptic curves, that are these needs that people have some doubts, we changed it to use brainpool elliptic curve cryptography. Okay, and then we are issuing identities for that. During our project with in Metro for the app that will talk to the fuel pumps, we developed an emulated fuel pump using an NSP32, and we are finishing developing a smart contract that received transactions signed by these ESPs. Okay, and with that we are able to track. If we send some specific command, for example, to calibrate it, then it can issue a blockchain transaction, and we store that. Okay, so we are still developing that. So we are in the middle of this whole thing. What we still plan to do, sorry for the typo here, we want now to move forward with a full implementation of the blockchain cryptographic service provider that will deal with Adword Curves, so we'll be fully compliant with the Brazilian PKI. We want to write more smart contracts, and we will look to encompass those three scenarios that I described for you. Okay, that is the scenario of calibration, the scenario of maintenance, and the scenario of use. Okay, and we'd like also to test other metrological devices. We're very targeted now for the field pump. Okay, we also plan to integrate with other systems. So we may create contracts that will allow for revenue and customs to check. Okay, because most of this legal metrology they have to do, of course, with protecting customers, but also by guaranteeing revenue and customs revenue for the state. Okay, so maybe how can we provide some data in these scenarios for them, and also calibration tracking. That is something important in terms of assuring the whole health of this system that we are using. So we also would like to do some tests on the wild using a phone app that we are developing for Metro, and this phone app can have some strategies to get the information that is digitally signed by the equipment, for example, the legal metrological equipment, and forward that to the blockchain, and acting as something that will allow us to collect things on the wild. So our idea is that, okay, that I wanted to present. That's, I think, very into the topic that we are discussing in here, and it brings these different scenarios together of legal metrology, cloud, blockchain, and IoT. Okay, and I'm now open to questions. Don't know if you have any, or maybe I was too quick or too cryptic to tell you about that. Okay, I'll just stop my presentation here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jean Martina. Is there any question? Please write it down or raise your hand. I have a couple of questions, if you allow me, Jean. The first thing is about, as you mentioned, perimeter security. Does this implement some kind of geolocation information to be aware of where it is located?
And probably Rodolfo or Bruno will be much more qualified to answer you that, because we are only consuming that. But that as far as I know, okay, we are only tracking with this secure element. We are only tracking the device itself. We are not doing geolocation. Okay. Even though this idea of us bringing the possibility of any citizen getting to the metrological device and getting a reading, a straight reading from the secure element, will allow us to do probably some sort of crowdsourcing of location, because in order for someone to move with such equipment, all the phones, for example, that will be talking with that will have to be rigged as well, so that they cannot tell us the location that it's seeing itself. Okay, so although we don't have these right now regarding location, we believe it's easily implementable because it's part of the software. Okay.
Right.
So Rodolfo is saying that in Metro database has the information of the location, but we can confirm that because once we get the person that is using the fuel pump in this case, we can ask for the phone to give us its location, and then we can confirm. So if someone moved equipment from one place to the other, of course, when we talk about fuel pumps, it's slightly much more difficult than moving than a scale. Okay, so
yeah, of course, it depends on the kind of device.
Yes.
Thank you for answering me this question. We have a couple of questions from other colleagues. There are some wondering about the cost. What's the cost of this implementation, and about the smart contracts? Where do you are planning to deploy them? Also about how to select which blockchain technology is how do you select it? What criteria do you use?
Okay.
And how to implement this? Okay.
I think most of the questions are on the same strategy. So they have the same answer, or I can navigate through all the questions with one single answer. So what happens? Cost, we are running what we call permission blockchain infrastructure. So it's a private infrastructure. So the cost is the cost of running a couple of nodes or some nodes of this blockchain infrastructure. So it's basically, if we quantify that in terms of price or in terms of infrastructure, it will be like two or three servers running on Amazon Cloud. That is something that it's tiny compared to what we see in terms of one of these single markets of legal metrology. Okay, and we ended up selecting one specific blockchain technology, that is Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, we did a whole review in the past for other projects that we conduct in here, and basically we end up with two main contestants when we go to create such permission blockchains. Okay, that will give us flexibility and so on. We ended up with Hyperledger Fabric and Corda. Okay, that is another blockchain scheme, and we ended up choosing Hyperledger Fabric because it's most widely used in terms of industry. Okay, we have seen applications in terms of industrial IoT and so on. So it seems to be very robust in that. And also because it allows us to create applications in many different languages. Okay, so we can program things in Golang, that is the language where the blockchain itself is implemented, but we can also code smart contracts in Java, in Python, and in JavaScript, and so on. So in this way, we believe that it is an experiment so far. We are not actually telling to actually deploy. What we want to do, we want to understand the benefits that we will have in terms of tracking legal metrological devices. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm seeing some other questions here from Patrick. Okay. Besides cloud, is the solution architecture is applied at UFSC? Which other? We are still on the Patrick. We are still working these on a very lab constrained scenario. Okay. So we have all the infrastructure running here at UFSC. It is a spin-off of the project that we have contracted with in Metro so far. So one of my PhD students that is actually one of the technical leaders of the project, he came with the idea and we started doing some explorations on that. And it seems like it's a nice strategy, but we have no public implementation, there is no network setup and so on. I think as soon as we have a bit more data and knowledge about the solution, it's very likely that we'll bring forward to other institutions to participate. Okay, and then there is Marcelo that talks about Corda low Swift integration with supply chains. Yes, okay, Corda is probably as good as Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, I think it's in some senses it's even more lightweight, and it has the same concept of contracts and applications. Okay, so basically anything that can do a call to a web service, okay, so to web service, will be able to interact with any of these blockchains. Okay, they interface with the real world, in fact, by exposing some APIs. And these APIs are not actually standardized. They come on applications. And we have some other scenarios that are not on metrological devices here, where we use SOAP and REST, this sort of interconnection APIs. Okay, so it's straightforward in this sense.
Thank you, Jane.
So, okay.
I have an additional question, a couple of questions. When you say that, well, you mentioned something about the handling or implementing the need to use a private and public keys, and I want to know what you think, or what are you thinking about how to use this to be shared and managed by the organization, the owner organization of these devices, or they will be assigned, or each IoT measuring device or metrological device will require its own public and private keys?
Yeah, no, we believe that each one will require such public and private keys, okay? Because that's what will do identity assurance for the device itself.
For the specific device.
For the specific device. What we need to establish here is how to bootstrap the security, because key generation is something that is complex. Okay, maybe the guy can generate the keys outside, keep a copy, feed into the device a copy of the key that he generated outside, and then he can clone equipment. To sort this out, there are some techniques, okay, based on the concept of the trusted platform modules, okay, where we have ownership keys, fabrication keys, and so on. And that maybe will be a strategy that needs to be explored further in terms of legal metrology when we want to assure identities based on keys, okay? So that's that's one of the things that we believe will have to be thought, because we cannot be sure, depending how the equipment is produced, or otherwise we'll have to constrain the production lines in such a way that there ought to be some inspection at some phases to be sure that there is no one leaking private key material. Okay, so I think in this sense, the answer to yes, we need to have these, and once we have that, these private and public keys on each equipment, we can talk to them uniquely. We know that they claim they are, because we can challenge them.
Yeah. My thought of line is the same as you, but I just want to to know your point of view.
Okay. I'm seeing some other questions here from Marcelo.
Yes.
Talking about Hyperledger Bazoo instead of Fabric. Maybe. Okay. The things we went for Fabric because it's the full thing. Okay. And if we go for the sub projects in Hyperledger, they usually work well when applied to that specific domain where they are targeted, but then you hit limitations. We had this experience, okay, with Sawtooth, okay, that is another Hyperledger project. We tried some of that and it didn't work very well, okay, and then we had to switch back to Fabric on what experiment that we were running. Then Wilson, okay, well-known colleague in Metro about integration of European metrology cloud blockchains. We didn't think about that yet. Okay, it's we would like to take a look. Maybe we need to be closer to your group, Wilson, in Metro, so that we can understand what the Europeans are doing for that. But I think we have some potential to explore these here specifically because we are setting up this infrastructure for some other thing that we can harvest blockchain out of that. And it seems like we ran out of questions.
Jane, could you please write in the chat box, write down the links or the names of these implementations or options that you mentioned? Fabric, I think you also mentioned Qualita or something like that. Not sure.
Corda.
Okay. Could you please write it down?
Hyperledger and Corda. Okay. These are the two blockchains that we are exploring in here for most of our projects. Okay, and now we develop some expertise on how to develop inner modules for these blockchains. That's probably one of the hidden reasons why we're choosing also, because we have the in-house expertise to use these guys. Okay.
Thank you very much, Jane.
All right.
It seems that we don't have more questions. Please raise your hand if you want to speak now. Well, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation to talk, Jane. Let's move to the next speaker and final speaker. The title of this last presentation is Ideas and Efforts to Realize the Digital SI. And the speaker is Mr. Jeff Goss from Fluke Corporation, and he will be the speaker. Mr. Jeff Goss is the Chief Corporate Metrologist and Senior Director of Regulatory and Compliance and Metrology at Fluke. Since he joins Fluke since 2010, and he has driven improvements in measurements quality for engineering, manufacturing, and service activities for Fluke, and also for team organizations around the world. He was part of the writing group member for the ISO 17043, that was in 2010, also for the new version of the 17025 and the ILAC P1409. In 2011, Jeff was recognized as the Measurement Science Conference for his outstanding contributions and leadership in metrology. And in 2017, he was named a Fluke Fellow. So we congratulate Jeff for this commitment and progress. The highest technical award for the company. Prior to joining Fluke, Jeff was the co-author of publications within NIST and served also as a consultant to NIST and UNIDO. I think that's the United Nations Development something, right? Okay. And Jeff has a bachelor's degree from Purdue University in physics. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you very much, and go ahead with your presentation.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Hugo. I'm very grateful to be invited to the meeting today, and hope that I could share a little bit about what Fluke is doing and that it might be interesting to the group. So again, originally I was asked to talk about something that we had a QR code that is kind of on topic for today, but I thought I would also talk a little bit about the past, present, and future of some of these activities that Fluke is working with to realize a digital SI as well. And let me share my screen. Okay, there we go. And I think if everybody should be able to see my screen, so I'll go to my next one. And again, a little bit of background about this. Fluke has definitely been very interested and involved with all of the activities that the NMIs around the world are doing to realize or develop this from a dream into reality about the digital SI. So we've attended the BIPM workshop on the International System of Units and Fair Digital Data, as well as the DCC conference that was sponsored by Ptb. We're also an active participant in the NCSLI 141 committee, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end because I think that everybody is welcome to attend that committee. And I think that is on metrology information infrastructure that started before the concept of digital SI even had started as well. And we also have been meeting with NIST on this subject to do some brainstorming back and forth with some of the team on this process as well. So we definitely want to be involved, and we see that this is very much a part of the future for industrial laboratories as well as the national metrology institutes too. So a little bit more about Fluke and where we all started. All of this started with an effort to standardize Fluke's calibration certificates. We, before I arrived at Fluke had also acquired a couple of other companies, the Datron WaveTech, Hart Scientific, and Ruska, and DH Instruments. So they were still all in a flux where they really haven't standardized our process yet. And one of the things we wanted to do was to standardize our calibration certificate, its format and content, because we felt that was the biggest win for our customers, to be able to read and interpret a certificate from any of our locations and be able to go to the same page and be able to see the same kind of information. And because in metrology, the product that we provide to our customers is that calibration data. And very quickly, I'll show you just a quick picture of what that looks like. This is a kind of an example of a calibration certificate that we provide. This is just page one of what our certificates look like, and it should look that way, hopefully, anywhere that Fluke produces a certificate. And I wanted to kind of focus on the bottom part, the information on this bottom part of the certificate. So at the bottom of the data, page one of the calibration data, we have a QR code. We have a calibration label. We have an authorizing signature spot. We have our address, our page number and number of pages, and the revision date of the template, for our calibration certificate, of course. So a little bit about the QR code and what we've done. And again, we've been using the QR code on our calibration certificate for approximately 10 years now. On it, people like it, but we haven't gotten a lot of feedback from it yet either. But again, we were trying to do this for the benefit of the customers long before there was consideration of a digital SI. But currently, the information that our QR code has is we have the Fluke laboratory code of where the work was performed, whether it was in our Fluke Park primary electrical standards laboratory, in our electrical calibration factory in Everett, or if it's in American Fork, Utah, or temperature laboratory. The calibration certificate number is on that because that's something that's easily traceable back to the information. It also has the date of calibration that it was performed, and it has the serial number of the device under test out of that. Now, that's not a lot of information necessarily on the QR code, but our goal in that was to not have too much information because we did not want to make the QR code so dense that it was difficult for a camera 10 years ago to be able to interpret. I think we could make the code a lot more dense now because the resolution of cameras is much, much better too. But again, back in 2011, 2012, there was still a lot of paperwork in calibration certificates. So our goal was that we should be able to have the original printed certificate, and someone could make a photocopy of that, and someone could make a photocopy of that, and somebody could take and make a photocopy of the third device. So in other words, 3 iterations of photocopies away from the original certificate, and the QR code must still be able to be readable. That we felt that was a pretty important part because we still are in this transition from a paper type of a system around the world for traceability to this new digital age. I will say, again, it's not perfect security, as I believe Jean had mentioned, that yes, you can still falsify QR codes, but we found that it's a little bit better security than what was out there now. We actually had discovered a couple of incidents where the QR code helped us to identify an improper alteration to an original calibration certificate. In other words, we found somebody who was photoshopping the date on their calibration certificate, but it didn't match the date on the QR code because they hadn't considered that. So, and as we go forward, one of the things I always ask our customers, and I'm very interested from this group as well, is what other information should we be putting into this QR code to make this more helpful to our customers? So, and then just a little bit of extra information about some of the things at the bottom of the certificate that might be of interest or things that we need to think about. We included a special paper where the label is embedded into page 1 of the calibration certificate so that it has a calibration label that can be peeled off of the certificate and placed on an instrument if the customer wants, or they could leave it right there on the certificate because some customers have their own calibration due dates and labeling in their laboratories that they want to use, so they may want to keep that just in the calibration certificate. And we also found that no matter where we decide to place a calibration label for the customer, we're usually wrong because they may put it in a rack configuration, so the label may not be visible, or everybody has where they would like to place the calibration label, so we allow the customer to do what they want to do on that. We do have a signature spot, and that spot can be either hand signed on the calibration cert, or we can use electronic signatures for a process. And again, most of our electronic signatures are used in high volume processes or highly automated processes, where in some of our electronic calibrations, the skill of the technician is almost irrelevant because we have, to use a Japanese term, pokio, which means error-proof the process so much that there is no skill requirements from the operator. All they're doing is moving it from station to station because we calibrate all the way to the ends of the cable, so they can't even make an error with connecting bad cables because that's a part of the calibration system, and it's a part of our process metrology that we do every day. So again, we have the ability to have confidence in our electronic certificate process. And again, as we go forward, though, I think that there will be a lot more discussion about electronic certificates and validity of that. If anybody's familiar, probably the most rigorous requirements around electronic signatures are from the United States Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. They have a lot of information or requirements around what needs to be in an electronic signature. So one of the things that we're doing today, so this is now we move from the past to some of the things in the present. We are doing an experiment right now. So when you send an item to Fluke Park Laboratories in Everett, where our headquarters building is at, our customers now can also, if they request, they can receive an XML version of the calibration certificate. So, so that would include things that come to our primary standards laboratory, newly manufactured products such as our 5500 series and 5700 series of electrical calibrators, our pressure controllers, our dry well calibrators, our liquid temperature baths, and anything that comes back for service. They're all within the scope that's providing the XML version of this certificate right now. And again, I'll pop over. So this is an example of what that looks like, and I'll jump over and show you a little bit more detail about this. So this would be page 1 of the particular certificate, which is a 5522 calibrator, and it is an 8-page calibration certificate. So this is the first page of the data. This is, and now we're starting to go into the actual measurement data for the 90-day specifications, the maximum permissible error. And you can see there's a lot of information in this certificate. So I could pop over to the, now I got to get over to the right file. This is what the XML file that the customer will get sent electronically to them as well. So you can see that there's a lot of information. I'll just go down towards the bottom here. So you can see test certificate results minus 100 degrees Celsius, it looks like, and the nominal value and the measurement result and the measurement result units and the error and the uncertainty and the specifications and flags of whether it's in the specification or not. So you can see that, you know, there's a lot of information here, and it gives the end customer the ability to pull this data electronically into their system if they want to make kind of a, if you will, an API to be able to convert the data and suck it into their system as well. So going back to this, yeah, fairly quick process. So a few thoughts about what we're trying to do in the future, since the subject of this group is cloud computing as well, is that Fluke is in the process of migrating towards cloud applications for everything that we do. We definitely see that that is the future of metrology. So whether we're storing and delivering calibration certificates for our customers, you have it through a customer portal. We also have another product that we're developing that it's called Cubit, and it's a cloud-based application that the goal of Cubit is to be able to give to anybody for free the product specifications for any piece of test and measurement equipment that's ever been manufactured in the entire world. We estimate that there's between 3 and 4 million of test instruments around the world. We currently have a database that I believe that is loaded in approximately about 1 million of them right now. So, and it continues to grow. So we want that because we find that when you're performing calibrations, the first thing you need to understand is the product specifications. What are we trying to test for a product, and what is its expected performance as well. So it always starts with the product specifications. And we're also even doing some work, and we're not there yet, but we're still a few years out on this, but even making cloud-based test executives where you could connect to the cloud, to your device under test, and perform the calibration. The end goal is that we can do calibrations in situ at the customer's location, maybe deliver the reference standards to the customer, connected up to a cloud-based application, and then perform the calibration. That is a goal or a dream of what we're looking at doing. So as we go into the future, I envision that all of our calibration certificates will be stored in an XML format, and then if we have them in a nice XML format, we should be able to, if somebody wants a viewable calibration certificate, a more traditional, if you will, paper printed copy or PDF copy type calibration certificate, then we can easily be able to have a tool that will convert the XML data back into a certificate that looks like that. But at the same time, as the digital calibration certificate standards start to become fleshed out and standardized, if we started our raw XML process, we should be able to build a converter that will be able to deliver calibration certificates to a DCC standard when we finally develop that standard as well. So yeah, what our real goal too is that every calibration data set that is produced by Fluke will be available to a customer through the calibration portal, starting with the manufacturing calibration data. So that you should be, for customers who send products back to Fluke, they will be able to see cradle to grave calibration histories that electronically maintained, so that they don't have to worry about that. Because I'll say right now that one of our biggest points of pain within our organization is that the customers will lose a paper calibration certificate and then they'll ask us for a reprint, and we really don't like doing that, but we haven't given them a better solution that they could serve themselves. I do see a question. I'll hold off on that toward the end as well. Again, but just to say that this, where we're at right now, we're very much in the infancy of the digital SI as well. So these are beginning steps. We're certainly not to an end. We have lots of improvements that we anticipate doing. We're very interested in hearing what is important to other people, and input from people like yourselves is always fascinating and important to us. And at the same time, we're very interested in participating in standards development. For example, again, I'm a representative on the board of directors through NCSL International, and we are a liaison organization to ISO Casco, so that we can help participate in that process as well. And our goal, what we hope to achieve, is to be the gold standard for industrial certificates of calibration. So I did want to again make one more pitch for NCSL International and their 141 committee, because I think they're doing some interesting things that this group may want to consider as well. One of the things that that committee is working on is what is referred to as the Metrology Taxonomy, so that they can understand the order and ranking and families of different measurements. So we can, because in order to have a DCC, we're going to have an agreed upon taxonomy and hierarchy of all measurements and how they relate to each other as well. And another issue that is recently came up is that a digital calibration certificate is great, but machines are not that smart just yet. We need to make them smarter with our AI and teach them. And if it sees something like a degree symbol on in an XML file, how does it know which degree we're talking about? Is it a temperature measurement, or is it electrical phase measurement? The machine doesn't know. And that information is not readily available in the DCC. And so there's been some discussion about another layer underneath to enable the DCC that's called the M layer, that will help define those ideas and terms to really clarify how to interpret the data that is within the DCC. So again, just and that, by the way, the 141 committee does meet every they do weekly meetings on teleconference, so anybody's welcome to jump into that as well. So and with that, I think we're ready for some questions. I do see 2 questions I can get. I'll start with, which is one from Francisco. And the question was, is the alteration of QR codes a major problem? How can we deal with this problem? And again, if somebody wants to commit a crime, it's very hard to stop them. It's always a cat and mouse game, in this process. But it's been our experiences. We've had people when they've tried to, alter things on a calibration certificate. They'll alter the written documents. Well, we have not observed anybody to have altered our QR codes yet. Now, I do think that it's very much a possibility, but I will say that if we consider, when we look at Fluke, when we look at risk, when we do risk analysis, we look at impact of what happens if this should happen, and also the probability of occurrence. And right now, the probability of occurrence is very, very, very low on that. So the overall risk number it turns out to be a small number on that now. It is finite. It does exist, but it's a pretty low risk what we've seen at this point. And the next one, comment or question from Alexander was that a very important feature of DCC is that it be machine readable. Are you doing some tests in this way? And yes, and that's why we're, if we provide our data in an XML format, that should certainly be machine readable for that process. Anybody should be able to pull up and draw into their system XML data. So that's a pretty standard and accepted format. But I think the key will be, again, making the translation tool, when we have defined fields of the DCC, to say, here's where our data exists in the Fluke system, to the output that they want in the DCC. I think that's going to be the biggest part of it. And then Mariano, thank you very, very, very much. And then Salvador, I'm glad to see you. You're attending today. And his question is how can SIM take more advantage of your experience in the topics, the NCSLI committee, and something else? Again, Fluke would be very honored to continue to interface with this topic. I would really, one of the things, if you are interested as well, that we're doing some really good things, and one of my associates, Mr. Mike Brown, is developing some very interesting things that I think fit nicely into this subject. For example, again, an international, or a global measurement model for measurement, where we could apply measurements back to the general case for any measurement, and we could share what we're doing and thinking about in that. He's doing some work with IMECO and the CFM conference to present some papers on that. Again, I could put in here after my presentation the information to contact and get in hold to join the NCSL 141 committee. They would love your involvement. We've got some people from the U.S. involved. From New Zealand is now attending that meeting. So if New Zealand can make it, they wake up in the morning and come to the meeting. Hopefully everybody else can as well. And I believe we're getting NRC Canada involved with that too. So so I think again, please let me know. I'm happy to have continued discussions about how we can help and support the SIM, with this process. And I see from Roberto Benitez, it's saying greetings from Monterey. That's wonderful. And again, Salvador, yes, and hopefully we can catch up. I'd love to chat with you. We haven't had a chance to talk in way too long. And then, yeah, how does Fluke's XML schema compare to Ptbs? We haven't done a full side-by-side comparison because we feel like it's not quite the PTB one is still being developed. So I think, but again, as that becomes a standard, that's I think we're going to make the translators to make sure that our XML schema is exactly what the standards XML schema is. And Chuck Ehrlich, yes, I saw you, Chuck, online. It's great to see you again as well. Thanks, Jeff. You briefly mentioned traceability. Does Fluke envision incorporating all of its information into the DCCs that would naturally allow for demonstrating traceability to one instrument standard to another? Absolutely. And I think that may be a combination of the DCC and the M layer that we had talked about. But, I had this dream, and it was almost 20 years ago that I first was seeing this, and that was when the KCDB was first published, where the KCDB is comparing and demonstrating traceability between NMIs for NMI to NMIs. And I would love to see a scheme where an industrial, the end user, say a factory in Vienna, can buy a piece of equipment that was manufactured in Korea and calibrated by an accredited laboratory in Korea that could relate the traceability to possibly to their NMI, where the Korean NMI would connect into BEV, the NMI of Austria, and connect down to the end user laboratory. So you could see the entire global path of traceability from where the calibrations were performed to where the end user lies. That's my dream, and I think that the KCDB is part of that. I hope that this is another part of that, and this may be the technology that enables that, Chuck. And if you want to come on and talk about that, I think we have, depending on the moderator, Mr. Gasca, if he has time, you could if you've got more thoughts on that.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I think we still have a couple of minutes. If any other comment or question, I have a couple, but I would prefer to hear some others. if that is not the case, yeah, Jeff,
yes.
do you think it's possible to share an example of the XML schema from Fluke with no commitments of nothing?
I will email that. I emailed my presentation this morning. I'll send an email to that. And I do see Chuck coming on screen, so I think he has a question or comment.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Yes, Charles? Or I don't see another question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I think that it could be very useful in digital calibration certificates to have what you're talking about and to be able to, at the click of a button, to show the whole traceability chain, all the different aspects, the different contributions to uncertainties, to all the influence factor, all that stuff. If it was all available there, it could be very useful to people to see just where the traceability is coming from and what standards were involved. And of course, traceability is of measurement results, so that I guess that can be extrapolated to measurement results coming from an individual instrument.
Cool. At least to that point, yes, absolutely. And I think that what Gene was talking about in the we may need blockchain to secure that chain of traceability, in the process as well. And then maybe when the end user performs measurements, if they're a testing laboratory, then maybe they can add to that blockchain to the end product that they test.
Right, exactly. And what this all means in the context of the 9th SI brochure, also something to bring into the mix. So yeah, so thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it. I look forward to continuing the discussion sometime.
Great seeing you, Chuck.
You too, thanks.
Okay, Hugo, any other questions?
Thank you, Charles, for the question. Yeah, well, I don't have more questions like that. Just to mention two points that I think that we should focus on the QR code just to be the ID of the certificate or the instrument, and then connect to a system, and from there we have the date of the last calibration and certificates and everything, or the history as you mentioned. That could help not to put too much information, also because there's a kind of a potential risk of disclosing information unnoticed if we put more information that should not be available otherwise. And I agree also, the other point that I want to mention, that I agree with you, and these NCSLI meetings, I has pointed out, and also to PTV, that I feel that we are missing we need to push harder on the taxonomies of the measurements, and the current Ptb schema focus just on quantities, not on the measurements by themselves. So it seems like there are some holes to fill there. So with that said, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. Very, very interesting. And also, as you mentioned, more than 10 or 20 years doing this. So it's almost like very, very tested, and not like improvising something, right? So we should look at this and learn from this. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you for inviting me today.
So let's move on to the next point. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have a survey to be filled by you that will help us to improve. Thank you very much. If the support, can you share the link? We will appreciate if you can fill this survey. And while you do this, it will not take you very long. So I want to say that while you complete this survey, I will take a chance to invite you to the next events. By now, we see in the very near future the DCC conference of this year, 2022. Next week, that will be March, from the 1st to the 3rd of March. And I don't know if we can share the link to that conference. If not, I have it here. I can share it.
Yes, it is shared.
Okay, thank you very much. And also our next M4DT Day will be conducted on April the 21st, and we will be reviewing about the topics about virtual instruments and virtual metrology. And I think that's it. We invite you also to visit our webpage, where you can find more information, and also the previews of presentations, or reviews of the presentation, and the recording of past events. Thank you all, for the special to Rodolfo, Bruno, Jean, and Jeff, also to the supporting group of this event, for your presentations and for sharing your knowledge on these interesting topics. And finally, I will invite you to turn on your cameras, to all of you, so we can take a capture of the screen. Thank you very much. So Francisco, could you guide us if we have the enough pictures, how long it will take?
Yes, of course. I want to please turn on all your cameras. I want to take a huge picture. Then please, I'm going to wait a little, because I want to have as much as faces
As possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't know. Iris raised her hand. I'm not sure if she wants to say something.
I don't see anyone raising his hand or her hand. Okay, Iris? Yes.
Okay. And please remember that we are waiting for your survey.
Your survey, yeah.
Yes, because it will help us very much. Then we will be glad if you can help us with that. Please, just a moment, and give me a smile, please. Okay, another one, just.
Okay.
It could be necessary. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. That's right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of you for your participation, for your time, and see you on the next M4DT Day. Have a great week and month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.